All right, Will Ashton, what is your number 4 pick of the year?
Yeah, so for me, number four is another film that I guess John and I were divided on, which is
Just a
the
smidge.
yeah the recent remake of Suspiria, which is based on the film of the same name from the 70s by Dario Argentino. This film was made by Luca Guadagnino, who is probably best known for Call Me by Your Name last year, which was, I believe, on your top 10 list last year.
It was my
Uh,
number 10.
yeah, I don't think I saw it at that time, but if it was in my top 10, it was pretty close, I remember.
I want to start work on a new piece. A piece about rebirths. The inevitable pull that they exert and our efforts to escape them. We learn it now, but Susie, you will improvise freely at its heart. I'm interested in your instincts here. The piece will be called Wieder öffnen, open again. Ali.
This is definitely one of those movies where it's playing to my interest. Suspiria is one of my favorite horror movies, and I love the cast in this version. Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton playing more than one role. Who else was in it? Chloe Grace Moretz, a wide range of talented people, Maya Goth, among others. And it was, I guess, for some people, a trying film. It was close to 3 hours. It was pretty bleak. It didn't quite have the same Technicolor wonderment that enchanted so many people to the original, but I felt the way the film tackled Cold War and continued the themes of the film, but in a way that expanded upon them and drew on them more, and really developed them and bloomed them into something that I found was pretty gorgeous and poetic in the same way that I felt other films on my list were gorgeous and poetic. But there's just I just really connected to this film. I think it's just based on my influence with the filmmaker, my appreciation for his other work, and also my appreciation for this film. But it just really grabbed me in a way that I think only a few films this year did. It was another film that had really high expectations for, but I think at its best, it is some of the most beautiful filmmaking I've seen in quite a while. So not for everybody, as I can assure you, but yeah, I really loved it, and I can't wait to check it out again. I've been biting my nails by that January 15th digital download release because I've been wanting so badly to check this film out again. But alas, I'll just have to suffice with putting it as my number 4 pick for this list.
All right, so pretty high up, and I gotta say, I'm definitely one of those everybody that you mentioned. Film didn't quite work for me, but I know it has its fans, and I really appreciate this film. Unlike Vox Lux, which I actively hate, I do appreciate Suspiria, and I'm really happy to see so many people really responding to it in the way that they are.
Yeah.
Just didn't quite click for me for whatever reason. Maybe I do need to revisit it at some point.
Did you at least like the score?
Oh, of course.
Okay,
It was one of the.
then we can still be friends.
Okay, that's great. Well, I mean, I even liked the score for Vox Lux, you know, so
Fair
score
enough.
does go a
the
long
score
way
for
with
that
me.
is fantastic. Yeah, I love
Yeah, it
Scott
really
Walker's
is.
work for that film.
Scott Walker did great work on Vox Lux. I forget who did it for Suspiria, but
Oh,
yeah.
Tom York, man.
Oh, that's right. Well, I was going to say Johan Johansson, and that would have been blasphemy because I knew that wasn't true, but his name popped to my mind. But all right, so a lot of other people picked Suspiria, and not a lot of other people, I guess, relative. 3 other people, depending on how you see that. So you're not alone, Will Ashton, as usual. At number 8, Julia Tatey put it, and we have it at number 5 from Chris Sheridan. And Candace Frederick, like you, has it at number 4. So you two had it at the highest. Nobody had it above number 4. So still pretty impressive, though, and very great from Luca Guadagnino. Yeah. All right. So that is Suspiria. My number 4 pick we've already heard about is You Were Never Really Here from director Lynn Ramsey. And, you know, for a while, this was my favorite film of 2018 for a good while until I saw my number 1. This may be my second or even favorite number 1 Joaquin Phoenix performance to date, as Kaylee Donaldson laid out earlier. And for so many reasons. I mean, this film, it's about a hitman, but it's not flashy. It's not a secret agent kind of hitman. This isn't a movie where action and violence is glorified. It's not a spectacle. It's a psychological breakdown of a sympathetic yet psychotic individual who clings to a morsel shred of his humanity in a bleak, pointless world surrounding him. Few films have put me in a spell like this one, but you can expect that sort of immersion from Lynn Ramsey. I mean, she is a master at making unlikable characters feel like they could be likable someday. And I shudder to think that some folks actually prefer First Reformed to this. I hate to take shots because both films share some DNA, with You Were Never Really Here being a spiritual successor to Taxi Driver, as you mentioned, Will, which, as you mentioned, Paul Schrader directed First Reformed. He wrote that way back. He wrote Taxi Driver way back in the 70s, along with Raging Bull. And I love First Reformed. Or at least I like it a lot. I don't know if I love it.
While I do agree with you, I do think You Were Never Really Here is the better of the two, as you can guess from my list. But I do think, at least with First Reformed, I can see why some people might put it above as a way it tackles faith. Like that might speak to them more than the fairly faithless nature of You Were Never Really Here. So I can certainly understand why that's
best, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So I can see if I don't know if that's the reason why some people put it up higher than You Were Never Really Here, but at least from that extent, I can understand it. So,
okay.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
All I can say is that You Were Never Really Here was a film that easily resonated with me the most, especially out of the two, and plenty other Cinemaholics had it on their lists as well. It was on 6 other lists, so including yours, so 7 total. So definitely one of the highest praised films of the year. We mentioned Kaylee Donaldson and Rebecca Pauley put it as their number 1, but Chris Sheridan put it as his number 7. Julia Tatey put it as her number 3. Cameron Myers had it at number 2. You had it at number 5. So a popular film among Cinemaholics, and I'm so happy to see that. I'm so happy to see this film working for so many other people. I was definitely hoping for that, and I'm glad to see it. So that was You Were Never Really Here. I don't think we're going to mention that film again in this episode, but I'm glad we were able to talk about it so much because we didn't really get to talk about it much on previous episodes of the show. So next up, we have another message from a Cinemaholic. This is from Skylar Schuler, who writes for the Diz Insider. So he's also been a contributor for the Dcast. So Skylar Schuler wrote about his favorite film of the year, and here it is. Widows is a stellar crime drama and has been criminally underseen. The film is an achievement that manages to juggle multiple storylines while telling a propulsive story that had me locked in the entire time. Daniel Kaluuya is completely vicious in his supporting role. This is Heat meets The Departed meets Gone Girl. Director Steve McQueen has established himself as a modern auteur among the likes of Tarantino, Nolan, and Villeneuve. You took umbrage, I think, at
what?
The film being underseen?
No, I was laughing because he said criminally underrated because it's about criminals.
I see. I misheard you. I thought you were being like, no, it was not underseen.
I was chuckling. I was chuckling because it's a pun. I don't know if it was intentional, but I think it was.
We've cleared the record. If anybody thought the same as me, they now know you were chuckling. And
okay.
Yes,
well, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Good play on words. Skylar isn't the only one who appreciated Widows. Also putting it as their number 1 film of the year is May Abdul-Baki. She also wrote in as well, and here's what she had to say. Steve McQueen's film is layered, powerful, and full of nuance. It's been generally overlooked, and that's a shame because the movie is one of those films that stays with you long after it's over. It helps that it has the best ensemble cast of 2018. Viola Davis is especially a powerhouse, and the film is a feminist journey for these women as much as it is a heist movie, filled with socio-political commentary and fantastic directorial choices. Widows is an exceptional film from start to finish. Widows, great film. I think it just narrowly missed my honorable mentions. It might actually be. Actually, it is. It's in my honorable mentions. I shouldn't have spoken so soon. But Will Ashton, I think I don't think it made yours.
No, I did like the film. It was good. I wasn't quite as high on it, but no, it's good. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely well-deserved praise. I think it's a good film and glad to see it making some number 1s. It was on plenty of other lists as well. So in addition, they had it as their number 1, but some people had it in their number 10, including Kimber Myers had it at number 10. Julia Tatey had it at number 10. You'll notice looking at these lists that Julia and Kimber are on some sort of like wavelength. They put a lot of films in the same spot. So clearly they're in cahoots.
Yeah, they're both playlisters.
That's right. Kaylee Donaldson put it as her number 9, and Candace Frederick had it as her number 3. All right, so that is Widows. Let's move on to our number 3 pick. Will Ashton, what did you choose for number 3?
Yeah, so another one, I guess it's a little out of the box, but I think for me it fits because it's the new film from two of my favorite filmmakers of all time, which is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is, I don't know if we ever cleared this up. Was it going to be an anthology series at one point? Or was that just...
I said definitively, and I stand by it, they always meant for it to be an anthology film. They never had plans to turn it into an anthology series.
Well, in any case, yeah, it's an anthology film that's centered around, let's see, it was 6 or 5? I'm trying to remember.
6. Yeah, it was 6 stories.
Yeah, 6. Yeah. Yeah, 6 different films set in the Old West. No connective tissue, which I think threw some people off. But they all tackle the same idea, which is the nature of death and the fairly kind of pointless nature of it in the Old West, and how like it's just something that kind of happens to everybody, and sometimes it's awkward and funny, and sometimes it's tragic and banal. And it's a film that I would be, I guess, hard pressed to say it's consistent. I mean, I would say that some installments are better than others, and I don't think it's going to be in my top 10 list for the filmmakers, just because the Coens have made so many great films that I don't even know where I could rank their films. But for me, just looking back on 2018, I just found myself reconnecting with this film more than almost any other film, with the exception of my number 1 film, especially the first segment, which I think I've rewatched at least 5 or 6 times by now. That's the titular Ballad of Buster Scruggs with Tim Blake Nelson. Everything about this film, especially as I grow to think about it more and more, I just love it more and more. I think it really captures a platter dish of all their greatness. I think it kind of captures everything that they're good at, and I just found it to be such a treat. And I found that it's probably some of the most fun I've had watching their films in quite a while, and I would be hard pressed not to put it at this place, which is number 3 on my list.
Yeah, it just narrowly missed my honorable mentions. Very close, though, and I really like this film a lot as well. It's my second favorite Netflix film of the year, right under Roma, and it's like right there with Shirkers, probably. And it's great.
Yeah.
It's such a good anthology, and it's one that I've revisited twice now, and I've gotten something completely different both times. And I'm glad you found a space for it. It's on 2 other lists. Ethan Edgehill has it as his number 8, and Adonis Gonzalez has it as his number 9. So you have it the highest, and
yeah, I figured as much. But I mean, I just love these guys so much, and I'd be hard pressed, like I said, to not put it in my top 5. So here we are.
Here we are indeed. Okay, well, my number 3 pick is Blind Spotting. We talked about this one a while back, and Will, I know you just watched it for the first time the other day. Before I sum up my thoughts, I want to hear your knee-jerk reaction. You just saw the film. What did you think of Blind Spotting?
I liked it. I wasn't quite as high on the film as you were, but I gave it a thumbs up.
All right. Well, as you can probably tell, I liked it a lot more. Yeah, Blind Spotting is one of those films that reminds me what joy it is to be surprised by something in the theater. I had no idea what I was in for. I hadn't watched a trailer. I hadn't read a review. I had heard from like a handful of people that it was worth seeing, but none of the praise was all that effusive. And I was just floored by this wonderfully weird film that should be despised by the film critic community for the way it jumps in tone from scene to scene. But that's what I loved about it. It captures the tonal imbalance of real life, and how we use humor and lighthearted escapades and rap and music to avoid talking about tough issues, but then also to talk about difficult issues and inconvenient truths about our friendships, about our environment, the police, where we live, gentrification, and so on. I can't wait to see what Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal do next as performers. Their central friendship in this film is undeniably a fantastic duo, one of my favorite duos of the year. And Carlos Lopez Estrada should get a blank check after releasing this as his debut. This is a great rental or blind buy if you dig the trailer, but I would also just recommend seeing it cold if you can, if you have the means. The less you know going into Blind Spotting, the better. And I'm not trying to be punny with that sort of thing. But yeah, that's where I'm at with Blind Spotting. It's on 4 other lists as well. Candace Frederick has it as her number 7. Chris Sheridan has it as his number 3, like me. Robert Yanis has it as his number 2, and Matt Donato chose Blind Spotting as his number 1 film of 2018. So I don't know. Maybe we're just seeing something that you didn't, Will Ashton, but that's all right.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think having seen Sorry to Bother You first, as far as that film explored Oakland, I don't know. I think that film spoke to me more than Blind Spotting. Maybe, like you said, like it was a surprise for you. I had so many expectations going in that maybe I was setting myself up to fail. But I did like the film. I just wouldn't put it in my top 10.
All right. Well, that was Blind Spotting. Glad you did get a chance to check it out. I think it's worth watching. And next up, Sam Nolan wrote in about his favorite film of the year. And, for a while, Sam was the only person who had an outlier as his number 1. So nobody had this film anywhere in their top 10 lists. Until someone did at like almost the last minute. So Sam, only one other person had this film on their list, and it was pretty low down. And we should mention, nobody had an outlier as their number 1. Everybody had a film on their number 1 list until somebody else picked it up. And I think, Will, you came pretty close too. There was only one other person who had your number 1 on their list, and they also had it as their number 1. So I know you were pretty happy to see that.
There are dozens of us.
That's right. So Sam Nolan, here is what he had to say about his favorite film of the year. I'm going to have to read it aloud here. This latest outing by David Lowery, centered on the notorious career bank robber Forrest Tucker, manages to be exciting, stylish, poignant, and somber, all at the same time. The plot focuses on a singular cat and mouse chase, but this is really a movie about the melancholy compromises of getting older and coming to terms with the bucket list items left unchecked. The lead role that is supposedly Robert Redford's last couldn't be more fitting, and Sissy Spacek and Casey Affleck only add to the wise mystique of the story as a whole. I'm not even in my 20s yet, so I find its level of effectiveness and accessibility especially impressive, and it's one of the only movies that comes to mind when reflecting on the very best of 2018. That is Sam Nolan talking about The Old Man and the Gun. I forgot to say what the film was, I apologize, but yes, that was The Old Man and the Gun, the reportedly last acting performance by Robert Redford. We'll see if that lasts, but this could be his bow out, and I think it's a good one to bow out on. I know, Will, you talked about this film a little while ago, and I think you said you liked it quite all right. And I haven't had a chance to see it myself, but interesting to see it make Sam Nolan's number 1 of the year.
I constantly forget that Sam is 19.
He's wise beyond his years. That's why we want
absolutely,
to hear from him.
yeah. But of course, but yeah, it always just hits me like, oh yeah. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, no, it's a great write-up, and I'm glad we got to include that film as well.
Well, Will Ashton, let's get into, this is the last controversial pick for you. The last film that you picked that didn't quite work for me. Now, I like this film a lot more than I liked, say, Suspiria and Vox Lux, but it is one that kind of baffles me that people love it as much as they do, so I want to hear from you. Convince me, Will Ashton, why is this film your number 2? Why is it good?
Yeah, I mean, of all the films I picked, I would not expect this one to be considered controversial, but sure, let's go with it. Yeah, for my number 2 pick, I picked Hereditary, which is what was his name? Ari Aster.
Ari Aster.
Yeah, his first movie, which, I mean, this is a great year for directorial debuts, but I mean, this guy has a hell of a career in his way. Yeah, so this movie, without going too far into the plot, it basically looks at the nature of mental illness, the familial nature of it, and just how it kind of cycles through. And you could say that's well-tried territory, and I wouldn't be able to deny that. But I felt the way the film communicated its themes, it shook me in a way that I don't think many other films have, especially not horror films. Because I watch a lot of horror movies. I watch at least 31 in a given year. And a lot of the times, like movies of the horror genre, I like them. They're usually good for a good laugh or sometimes like a good fright here and there. But most of them don't really sit with me for too long. Even the ones I really like Suspiria. Like they don't really like scare me per se. But this is the one film in a long time, as far as horror movies are concerned, that really just kind of like unnerved me to the bone. in a way that I think it just the film's themes, like what it was trying to talk about and what it was saying, just resonated with me so much, and I felt the masterful way that it communicated its story, as long as the fantastic performances, especially from Toni Collette and what's his name?
Alex Wolff.
Yeah, there you go. I always get him and his brother mixed up.
Yeah,
but,
I think Nat Wolff is his brother.
Right, but this is Alex Wolff, and this is his best work, I think, to date. And Toni Collette, she should be on all the award circuits right now, and it makes me mad that she is not, because she is brilliant in this movie, and I think everyone does a really great job, and I am still shooketh by this film, and I am eager to check it out again, if maybe behind some covers. So that's my number 2 pick.
Yeah, to be honest, this probably is my favorite horror film of the year now that I'm thinking about it, because I don't think there were any other straight-up horrors that I had. Like, I don't have any horror films on my top 10 or my honorable mentions. The closest would be Revenge, which is in my honorable mentions, which isn't really a horror. It's a psychological thriller.
I mean, I'd consider it in the horror genre.
Some people could, sure. I think that Hereditary, though, as a pure horror, I do appreciate it on that level, and I could not agree with you more about Toni Collette's performance here. It is pretty fantastic, and you definitely have some friends here, Will Ashton, because it's on a lot of other lists. It's on 5 total. The person who had the lowest was May Abdul-Baki. She had it as her number 10. Julia Tatey had Hereditary as her number 9. And Robert Yanes had it as his number 7. Matt Donato had it at number 5. Matt Donato is like the horror guy, and this was his favorite horror film. Well, he just watches way more horror films than I think anyone I know. And it made it pretty high on his list. It's his favorite horror film, just based on what he sent us. And then Adonis Gonzalez had it as his number 2, just like you, Will Ashton. So you're in good company. Definitely a film that worked for a lot of people in the Cinemaholics universe. So that is Hereditary. All right, my number 2 pick is Searching, oh my goodness. To be honest, I thought I would be an outlier on this film, but I'm not, thankfully. I do have it higher than anyone else, though, at number 2. And I'm happy to see that more people are checking this one out during the awards conversation. I've been hearing more about John Cho being considered, Anisha Ganti being considered, and I'm not convinced yet it's going to get nominated for much if anything, but, you know, I'd love to see this secure some well-deserved technical award nominations, for example. Editing and sound mixing, everything like that. So Searching is a digital life mystery thriller where we see a father played by John Cho use technology to try to find his missing daughter. And the film is told via computer screens and cell phones as our way into the lives of these characters. It's a film with pitch perfect editing, a story with some actual stakes and upbeat moments that help you invest in the main leads. And it has a few twists and turns that make this sort of mystery as thrilling and satisfying as it should be. I'm one of the few fans of the film's sort of insane third act, and I defend it to this day as the rare film that has an answer to the big question that feels somewhat unexpected but also very earned. I love this film. It was a great theater experience. I'm glad I was able to see it with an audience, with people who are really getting into it. It's one of the few films I saw twice this year, and I think the only other film I saw twice was Avengers Infinity War, and then my number 1 film of the year I saw 3 times. So definitely on brand for me, I suppose. But yeah, Searching, fantastic film, and it was a real contender for my number 1. It just barely didn't make it, and I love it so much. Did it make your honorable mentions, Will Ashton, or did it get close at least?
I don't think so, but I'm glad you got so much out of it. But I mean, yeah, I'm glad you got so much out of the film, and I agree with you that John Cho's performance is fantastic. So, right. Yeah, I'm glad it's speaking to so many people.
Great film, and I'm glad people are checking it out. Jake Holland has it as his number 10, and Sam Nolan has it as his number 3. So just a few lists, but definitely that film has some fans, including me. Okay, so that is my number 2 and your number 2, which Will Ashton, that means it's time for honorable mentions. And we've said a bunch of them already, but let's go through the whole thing so people can catch up. Starting with you, what almost made your list?
Yeah, like I said at the top of the episode, Wildlife is up there for me. Same as Private Life, which really I debated. I just saw that over the weekend. I really debated putting that at number 10 as well.
I thought you were going to do it. I was like, ooh, that could probably do it.
Yeah, I really liked that movie. I'm bummed. I don't think you liked it quite as much as I did, but
But I did like
yeah,
it. Yeah, just barely missed my honorable mentions, but it's high up.
yeah.
Yeah.
It has some of the biggest laughs and some of the most crushing lows of the year, and I really got a lot of it. I hope Tamara Jenkins makes more films. Roma, as I mentioned, Timeshare, which is really flying under the radar. It's on Netflix now. Definitely check that out. Mission Impossible Fallout. I don't think we even mentioned that one yet, which
We
is
haven't
surprising.
mentioned it, but it's on a lot of lists. A lot of people picked it. I think it was very popular as a number 4, number 5 kind of pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. Probably the best in the series. Eighth Grade, Annihilation, Black Panther, Shoplifters, Shirkers, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Paddington 2, Can You Ever Forgive Me, The Sisters Brothers, and Upgrade.
Yeah.
Those are my honorable mentions.
A lot of great films. The only outlier I see is Timeshare. But yeah, a lot of people had Eighth Grade. A bunch of people had Annihilation. We mentioned a lot of people had Black Panther. Shoplifters, I was happy to see there was probably about 4 or 5 people who put that on their lists. Shirkers, again, 1 or 2. And I got really close to putting that one on my top 10. And
Yeah, I thought you would.
I really thought about it. I really love that film. Another film I saw twice. There was also Paddington 2, which, it's Paddington 2. I'm surprised it hasn't come up already, but it made a lot of lists as well. Just such a charming, wonderful film.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Can You Ever Forgive Me? I was surprised to see that film, The Sisters Brothers, and Upgrade all had more than one mention on a list. So definitely on the same wavelength, Will Ashton, with the rest of the Cinemaholics. For me, my honorable mentions include, like you had, Annihilation. I also want to mention Thoroughbreds, which I don't think anybody had it on their top 10 lists, but I'm sure some people have it in their honorable mentions. Love Thoroughbreds, great film. First Reformed, as I mentioned already. Three Identical Strangers, which I don't think made anybody's lists yet. Widows, which obviously has been talked about. Paddington 2, already talked about that one as well. Won't You Be My Neighbor, which was in your top 10. Assassination Nation, which I think made 1 or 2 lists, I want to say. If not, definitely would be in some honorable mentions. I know some people who love that film more than I do. Incredibles 2, as we talked about. Black Panther, Shirkers, Revenge, as I mentioned earlier. Game Night, which I was surprised to see Game Night made 2 or 3 lists. Some people really liked that one. It didn't get all that high up for anybody, but some people had it number 10, number 8, things like that. Tully, another one that was on a few lists. I was happy to see that one got some love. Actually, I think that one was an outlier. So we're going to get to that in a second. And then Avengers Infinity War. I still really love that film. I love the ending of Avengers Infinity War. Another really popular film for Cinemaholics. We haven't talked about it yet, but made a lot of people's top 10s. I think it was a lot of like number 5s, and I think maybe a few people had it, like number 4, number 3. So that one definitely got a lot of points just for being on a lot of different lists. So those are our honorable mentions. Before we get into our number 1 films of the year, let's talk about the outliers. So these are the films that somebody picked that nobody else had. And we should mention, Will Ashton, you and I, we didn't have any outliers. All of our films were chosen by somebody. And yeah, that's right. So first up, we have All About Nina. We have Tully. We have American Animals, The House That Jack Built, Shrek Retold, Overlord.
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Private Life, The Tale, Bird Box. Very surprised to see that.
Bird Box. Wow.
Yeah, somebody really liked that one. Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Really love that pick. Juliet Naked, Ocean's 8, Bohemian Rhapsody, Christopher Robin. So, but no, Lights Camera Jackson did not.
Yeah, I was gonna
contribute
say,
a list.
did Lights Camera Jackson put in this one?
Yeah. Zama, which almost made my honorable mentions. It was literally between that and Avengers Infinity War. Very great
check
film.
that out.
Yeah, I hope you do soon. Anna and the Apocalypse, Bad Times at the El Royale, Border, which I've really been meaning to see. Bodied, again, it's on YouTube Premium, and I'm kicking myself because I had a chance to see it and I didn't. So I do want to see that one soon.
Yeah.
The Night Comes for Us, Shirkers, Minding the Gap, Cold War, which, again, another film that I haven't had a chance to see yet, and I've heard Cold War is amazing. I have a feeling it could make one of our top 10 lists. It would probably make a few top 10 lists here if more people had seen it.
Maybe. I don't know. I liked it. I wouldn't put it in my top 10, truth be told.
Yeah. Ralph Breaks the Internet, Creed 2, Vice, Stan and Ollie, Ready Player One, The Death of Stalin, and The Writer. So some really great films in there, some films that I don't necessarily love as much, but that is the beauty of lists like this. We definitely had a mix of responses, some really unique responses too. Thank you to everybody who contributed a film or a top 10 list and a message, but we're not done yet. We're going to get into our number 1 films of the year. First up, Will Ashton. Only one other person put this on their top 10, and it was Chris Sheridan. He also put this film as his number 1. What is this film? And Will, why is it your number 1?
Yeah, that's a good question. My number 1 pick is Mandy.
You and that ugly little whore. You think you're so in love? I'll show you love. Lucy? Neil. Now show him how much you love me.
It's the second film from writer-director Panos Cosmatos, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. But yeah, it's probably best known as the revenge film where Nicolas Cage has a chainsaw fight. But I think more than that, it's a pretty how do I even describe Mandy? It's like this seductive film that somehow combines the art house world with the kind of schlocky sensibilities of Nicolas Cage's later works. And it's this film that shouldn't work as it does. It shouldn't be this film that comes together in this way. It should be like this kind of janky, offline type film, but it really works. I think it's a credit to the director, and I think it's also a credit to Nicolas Cage, who are really working in sync together. I think they both kind of understand each other in a spiritual sort of way, and they produce this film that, like, on paper, it doesn't sound like anything particularly special, but watching it, especially in the theaters or even at home at night, I think it really just kind of gets into your system. At least it did for me, and you kind of become one with it, and it's like a psychological, like almost high of some sorts. Like you, even if you're not doing drugs, it kind of feels like you're high watching it. And I debated whether even to put this at number 1, just because I was like, well, I mean, there are so many great films this year. There are so many films that really stuck out to me and spoke to me on so many levels. But I think for Mandy, it just so much, it idolizes, I think, everything that I feel like I want out of a movie in some ways. Like it's all these elements I love put together in a way that works, I think, impressively well. And it's the one film from 2018 that I've seen twice all the way through, and I am eager to check it out again. So that is my number 1 pick for 2018.
All right, Mandy, what a film. I just saw this one recently. I really liked it. I'm really glad I liked it, because I knew it would probably break your heart if I didn't. But no, this film really works. I mean, it takes you on such a trip. It's a real, it's a weird movie, and
2 ways. Yeah.
Yeah. The artistic backgrounds and the creative cinematography here is just, it's wonderful. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just so good at like capturing a mood and a feeling. It feels like you're like diving into an album cover from the 70s.
Yeah.
80s.
Very metal. Yeah.
Yeah. Which that was the motif that I wanted. It's the motif that I got. I don't love it quite as much, but I definitely really like this film. And I think that, the love for it is well deserved. From I know a bunch of people have been liking it and been recommending it. You can get it on Shudder right now, which is how I saw it. You just sign up for a free trial, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Shudder is a great streaming service too, if you're interested. Yeah. It's fantastic.
I mean, you can sign up for the whole thing. I would say, beyond the free subscription.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So try it out, do the free trial, see Mandy, and consider subscribing. It's definitely worth your time. I think it's a good service all around. But yeah, great number 1 pick. Like I said before, only one other person had it. Chris Sheridan obviously really liked it, and I think you saw that coming. I think you mentioned you had a feeling he liked the film as much as you did. Before we move on to my number one, I'm not alone because a few people liked this one as well. We have 2 recordings to share. The first one is from Tyler Carlin and Ethan Edgell of the Bacon and Eggs podcast. Their favorite film of 2018 is the same as mine. Some would call that copycatting. I don't. I just think it's great minds thinking alike. But here's what Tyler and Ethan had to say about their favorite film of the year.
When I think about why Eighth Grade was my favorite movie of this year, there's a few points that come to mind for me. For one thing, it's shot like a horror film, which is, I think, incredibly accurate. You know, this movie is about the horrors of being an 8th grader that doesn't have many friends. And it did an extremely good job of reminding me of the horror of going to the cafeteria on the first day of school in a new school, or going to a pool party where you didn't have any friends and all of a sudden you had to take your shirt off in front of everyone that you went to school with and you didn't know what they were going to say. It was also incredibly real. I felt like Elsie Fisher actually looks like an 8th grader. You know, a lot of people praise something like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, but even Tom Holland is in his 20s. Elsie Fisher really does look like a kid. I thought it tackled some real negatives in a way that a lot of other teen movies I've seen haven't. It's also from a genre that isn't typically my go-to. I love teen movies, but this was shot and told in a different way than what I'm used to, and the fact that it was still able to grasp me and bring me in the way that it was, to the point where I wanted to recommend it to everyone that I knew, is extremely important to me. Additionally, when I saw this movie, I remember Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again was playing next door, and it was almost poetic because it was like, here's this movie about this horrified teenage girl, and next door is all of these adults watching this, rom-com romp sing-along with ABBA songs that have no idea what's going on in their children's lives. And to me, that was a really sort of poetic feel. So that's why I choose 8th Grade as my number one movie for the year.
Howdy, folks. This is Ethan from Bacon and Eggs, a movie lovers podcast here, and I'm here to talk about my number one movie of the year. I picked 8th Grade by Bo Burnham because it is a bold and different kind of movie that we haven't really seen before in the past few years. It feels almost like a horror movie about how bad it actually is to be a kid. It's bold, it's inventive, and it's incredibly well told, incredibly well shot, and just a consummately wonderful story about being a child, about being a young person, especially in America, especially at this difficult time in everyone's lives. And I think it's a really important movie. I think it's the kind of movie that parents should want to show their kids, even though it got an R rating. It's an important movie for everybody to see, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're a kid or not. I just thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was one of the best that came out all year. I loved almost everything about it, and it's been one of the best films I've seen in probably the past 3 or 4 years.
All right. That was Tyler and Ethan from the Bacon and Eggs podcast. Wonderful podcast. I've had the privilege to be on there a few times. Tyler was on an episode of Cinemaholics pretty recently, and we had a lot of fun talking about Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald. So next up, though, we have another recording. This is from Abby Olchesi, who shared her favorite film of the year. No surprise, it's the same one. Here's what Abby had to say about 8th Grade.
Hi everyone, my name's Abby Olchesi, and my favorite movie of 2018 was 8th Grade. When I think of movies that I truly, really loved this year, the first one that comes to mind is 8th Grade. It's not just a good exploration of what it's like to be an awkward young teen in the age of Snapchat and Instagram. It's also a really funny, beautiful story about how badly each of us want to be seen and known and fully loved by other people, and how our quest for that often takes on performative qualities. As someone who also enjoys director Bo Burnham's comedy, I also think this is the kind of movie that only someone like him, someone who's intimately familiar with, understanding of, and repulsed by social media platforms, could have made. 8th Grade is hilarious and accurate and sweet, and I loved it with all my heart.
All right, that was Abby Olchesi from Slash Film and Birth Movies Death. Abby was on our Tully episode, I want to say. Love her work and love her insight into that film. 8th Grade is my number one film of the year.
I said one more week of 8th grade, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, huh?
I can't believe you're gonna be in high school.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
You excited?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I'm very excited. I'm so excited.
No other film this year has so completely grabbed and held onto my heart like Eighth Grade. Elsie Fisher's performance as a girl dealing with the awkward transition out of eighth grade is one that I'm going to be remembering for years to come in the way that it captures this current time with absolute accuracy and potency. You get the sense that director Bo Burnham used this opportunity as a first-time film director to go down avenues more senior directors wouldn't even think to consider. You know, trying things out that other directors would probably think isn't worth their time. You know, I've praised this film quite a bit since seeing it last spring, but I want to highlight something I don't think I fully appreciated until the third viewing, and that is the music and score by Anna Meredith. Fans of Bo Burnham might actually think and assume that he is the composer because his stand-up specials have historically used a lot of music, but he had the sense to bring in a synth pop composer, Anna Meredith, who can really translate the pop music that someone like Kayla in this movie might actually listen to, but in a way that's still accessible for everyone watching who is not an eighth grader or a particular fan of the genre, for example. I'm probably going to watch this movie for the rest of my life, and it may go down as one of my favorite non-genre films about adolescence ever. I'm so happy to see it strike a real chord with other cinemaholics. More people picked Eighth Grade as their number one film of the year than any other film, with Spider-Verse as a close second. Eighth Grade was on four people picked it as their number one, including me and Tyler, Ethan, and Abby. It was on 11 lists total, and so excited to see that. Though strangely, no one had it as their number two, so it was kind of all or nothing, Eighth Grade. But it made your honorable mentions, Will Ashton. I know you liked the film as well.
Yeah.
And it's great. It definitely is a film that definitely is a winner for a lot of cinemaholics. But let's see how it actually pans out for the Cinemaholics Top 20. Now, we've teased this up quite a bit. The way the point system worked, kind of mentioned this before, but if a film, let's say a film was in the number 10 spot, it got 1 point. If the film was in the number 6 spot, it got 5 points, and so on. So we factored in where it was in the rankings with the commonality of it, how many people picked it. We also had some films that would tie. So one of the things that we did was we took the number of times it was on a list and we doubled it. So Eighth Grade was on 11 lists, so it got 22 points on top of its rankings. Little complicated, but it's just our way of sort of prioritizing not just the ranking, but how many people actually put it on their lists at all. So it's a combination of factors, and I'm really happy with where it landed, to be honest. I think that it's a great top 20. Let's list them off now. At number 20, we have Suspiria, which got 31 points. 19, we have A Star is Born, which got 32. At 18 is Paddington 2 with 33 points. 17, A Quiet Place with 38 points. 16, Incredibles 2 with 40 points total. At 15, Hereditary at 43. 14 is Widows, which got 44 points. 13 is The Favorite, which got 45 points, just barely beating Widows. Then number 12, First Reformed, which was in the top 10 for a while. It got bumped down pretty late in the game, but First Reformed had 46 points. At number 11, Blind Spotting, which had 49 points. So just barely got pushed out of the top 10. All right, and now our top 10 films of Cinemaholics in 2018. So at number 10, First Man got 50 points. Now, it tied with our number 9. Our number 9 was Annihilation, which also got 50 points. But Annihilation had 7 placements, so it made 7 lists. First Man made 6, so we put Annihilation above First Man. Annihilation, like I said, number 9. Number 8, If Beale Street Could Talk, which I was very happy to see this one. I think it was out of the top 10, and then one of the last lists submitted had Beale Street pretty high up, so it pushed it to the number 8 spot with 55 points. With 59 points, number 7, Mission Impossible Fallout, which again, neither of us had on our lists. It's one of the few films on this top 10 that you and I didn't have. And then number 6, this isn't a surprise, You Were Never Really Here with 68 points. Did super well. A lot of people had it as their number one, or similarly in the higher echelons there. Number 5, which I was surprised, this one was looking like it was going to be either number 1 or number 2. But at number 5 was Roma, which got 73 points. It did pretty well, but it slipped a little bit as the list started coming in. Number 4, Avengers Infinity War. This one was on a lot of lists, which really pushed it up. It got 81 points. However, it is not the highest superhero film on this list. Next, we have Black Panther at number 3 with 86 points. Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War were neck and neck, and it really did come down to one last list. Somebody put Black Panther on, and that pushed it over the top. This one really surprised me, Will, and for a while there, I thought it might actually get number 1, and that is 8th Grade at number 2. It got 97 points. Did really well. Again, a lot of people had it as their number 1. A lot of people had it high on their list. 8th Grade. I'm content with this decision. I'm sad, Will. Mandy didn't make the top 20, but that is a testament to your originality, your individuality. So take that as you will. And then finally, at number 1, not really a surprise here if you've been listening and paying attention, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. 134 points, won by a landslide. Really, because like we said, it was on the most amount of lists. It seemed like everybody really loved this one. It was on my top 10. Will, it was in your honorable mentions. A lot of people really loved this one. And it's just amazing. Like looking back when we were thinking about 2018 last year and some of the films that we were really looking forward to. Well, I remember like we talked about this one, and I remember being cautiously excited for all of the right reasons. I think we were both talking about the animation being very interesting. That first trailer that they dropped really just sort of, or was a teaser, kind of selling us on this alternate take on Spider-Man. And I'm so thrilled to see this one be so successful, especially with us Cinemaholics. That is our number 1 film of the year collectively. And what do you think, Will? Do you think this is the right choice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems to be the film that is, above all else, really connecting to everybody. I mean, I can't think of any one person that dislikes this film, let alone doesn't like through the roof loves it. So, yeah, it makes sense.
For sure. I agree. And I know it wasn't as high up for you, but yeah, it is hard to find somebody who just straight up dislikes it. So we can definitely take that as praise and take that as a good reason for this one to be our number 1 film. But that will do it for our top 10 films of 2018. Thank you so much for listening to this a little bit extra long episode of the show, but we're really happy to do it. We're really happy to have so many other voices on here. I hope that everyone got a pretty full rundown of all the films talked about here. We're going to be posting the full top 10s from everybody who contributed, so you can take a look. There are a lot of other films that people put on their list that we didn't even get to. I mean, off the top of my head, Black Klansman, we had Burning, some people had What They Had, Crazy Rich Asians, lots of other films to talk about that weren't even outliers, but we didn't get to. So we're going to be posting all of that in the show notes, so just keep an eye out for that link. And with that, I think that's going to do it for us this week from the Internet I almost said from the Internet Pennsylvania. I'm just I'm in a Pennsylvania mood or something. From the Internet California, so. I am John Negroni.
And from the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton.
We'll see you next time.